Hello and welcome to another episode of the NK Active podcast. I am Nick Knight, a podiatrist and clinical director here at NK Active, and I'm kindly joined by Dr. Charlotte Dando, one of our other podiatrists here at NK Active. So this short podcast month's topic is plantar fasciitis. So Charlie, what is plantar fasciitis?
Okay, so in its simplest terms, in my head, plantar fasciitis is a thick fibrous tissue that sits from the base of the heel bone and then stretches across into the toes.
Perfect. Yeah, and it is keeping this because we want to try and keep this to 10 minutes and we could speak for 10 hours on this subject. So if we think about, okay, that's the plantar fascia. And then what is the problem, the plantar fasciitis? And if we sort of think it in three stages, so stage one, you could possibly have thickening of the plantar fascia itself. So you've injured it and it's got a little bit thicker. Then stage two is you may have irritated the fat pad, the soft squishy bit underneath your heel. And then stage three is you've then got some bony bruising or bony edema. And you can have all of these individually, or you can have them all coincide at once. And the very, very simplistic way, in general terms, the more of these things you've got coexisting at once, the longer it takes to settle. And this may be why if you have plantar fasciitis or your friends have plantar fasciitis, why some people may settle in a few weeks, some people may take months and months and months to settle. So, Charlie, if it's not plantar fasciitis, what else could it be?
Yeah, so if I'm thinking, what other, we call it the differential diagnosis, could it be? I'd also be starting to think about maybe tarsal tunnel. So this is where the tibial nerve becomes inflamed or irritated, and this can be due to either injury, trauma, or repetition. And what you tend to find is this creates a set of kind of neurological symptoms, so kind of burning and tingling in the plantar heel and ankle area that can be really uncomfortable for someone. There is also something called a calcaneal fracture. So this is usually through trauma. So typically you'd see people will have fallen off of something or something from a great height, so dropping down usually off a wall, and they will have cracked or fractured the heel bone, which we call the calcaneus. And then sometimes it can be that there may also be thinking about Achilles tendinopathy. So plantar fascia tends to happen on the bottom aspect of the heel, whereas the Achilles is at the back of the heel, so at the posterior aspect. So sometimes we might get symptoms that kind of move around the heel from front to back and the bottom, which can make it hard to work out where it is exactly.
And then building on that calcaneal fracture also, it also has the term lover's fracture. And the reason why it's got that term is, should we say, if you've been a little unfaithful to your partner and you've been playing away and you've got caught red-handed and you jump out a window, this is how sometimes these fractures occur. So that's why it sometimes get called the lover's fracture. So I suppose that's karma really, isn't it, really? Going back to the stage of the plantar fasciitis. So how can you tell yourself what stage possibly may you be at? And so I was thinking, just thickening of the plantar fascia, what you'll notice, the pain will be worse as you go to push forward during your walking or your running. If you've got some fat pad irritation, you'll tend to find the pain is worse when your heel strikes the ground or long periods of standing. So if you're using a standing desk at work or at home. And then bone edema, you'll tend to find it just aches and throbs at night and particularly at rest. So that's how you would tell the difference. And also with bone edema, if you cup the bottom of your heel and you give a good old squeeze, if you've got a bit of bony bruising, it will tend to go ow a little when you do that. So we've covered over briefly what is plantar fasciitis, the other three common things we see in clinic when it's not. That's not an exhaustive list. If we were to give you an exhaustive list, we'd be here for another 10 hours. So now maybe let's start thinking about treatment. So Charlie, how can you treat plantar fasciitis?
So there are a number of ways to treat plantar fasciitis, but the two that probably have the most evidence around their effectiveness are shockwave therapy. So that's using a device that has a ball bearing that hits against the soft tissue. The aim of that is to cause irritation so that it will kind of promote healing of those tissues, whereas foot orthosis looks to support the plantar fascia to improve function in order to kind of offload it for a short or long period of time.
And building on the orthoses aspect, there's a misconception out there that people think where we've got a flat foot or a high arched foot that this causes plantar fasciitis. Unfortunately, there's not much evidence to support these claims. Now, the way your foot functions may contribute to the symptoms that you are getting, but when you're looking at foot orthoses or insoles, you can use ones bespokely made for you, and the evidence suggests that this may be slightly better than something off the shelf, but it's about the right tool for you at the right time. But it's about with the foot orthosis, about how can we offload that plantar fascia so you can do all your walking, your running, your activities that you want to do without increasing the load through it too much. So it's not thinking about the shape of the foot, it's thinking about how we're going to offload with the orthoses. And then the next thing you can think about is building from the orthoses is taping. And we use a lot of taping in clinic. And I filmed a video of me taping in my garden my own foot over lockdown that we can post a link in the description, in the chat for you to watch, and also where you can possibly buy some tape from as well, because doing the taping can be a very, very useful tool. I call it the get out of jail free card. It can be very helpful to reduce symptoms immediately straight away. And it's also a good tool to use that if you find taping helpful, there is then an increased chance that you are then going to find using any foot orthosis or insole helpful. So it can be used as a bit of a test of, do I need an insole or not? What else have we got, Johnny?
We then also have to think about educating you guys really, on how to manage and live with this condition. And some of that will be through how to load manage. And what we mean by that is thinking about when and how and the intensity that you do your activities, maybe going to work, participating in sport, going to the gym, and thinking about how we can work with your pain and symptoms so that you're still able to do some aspects of that, but you're not doing too much, whereby you're aggravating your signs and symptoms. The other thing we want to think about is lifestyle choices. And in particular, we're thinking about weight management. So we know that if you are overweight and losing weight, this can have an effect on helping to ease some of those heel pain symptoms.
Yeah, and then finally looking at building on that is talking about strengthening exercises and stretching. There are some papers out there that shows that this can be a helpful tool, but actually it's only something we've started in the research looking at very, very recently. And it's something that we do a lot of here at NK Active, is going through that rehabilitation process, because the important thing to think about it is you're not just treating the plantar fascia. There's a person attached to this foot, and we need to take you into consideration as well as your heel pain as well. And it's always asking the question of, well, if we resolved your heel pain, or if we helped you resolve your heel pain rather, do you feel the rest of you is ready to go back to doing your level of activity? And that doesn't matter if your goal is to walk to the shops or do a bit of gardening or become the best athlete in the world at what you're doing. We're still human beings made of the same stuff. But it's about increasing the strength and capacity through the foot and ankle, through the calf muscle, through the plantar fascia region. But then it's also made so actually we need to work on strength around the hips. And it's about building stuff that is targeted for you. And there is a good little exercise that you can do. Again, we'll post the plantar fasciitis fighter video in the links about, there's one exercise that you may find helpful. But then it's now starting to bring this to a close. Is the big thing with treatment is that the things that me and Charlie will often get asked in clinic a lot is, okay, what treatments do I need for me? Or my friend had this, my friend had that, because I've read it on self-help groups on Facebook or Googled it. And the thing is that we are all individuals. So the treatment journey you will go through will be different to your spouse who has had it, or your best friend, or your neighbor, because there are different barriers to treatment for you. There are different experiences. There are so many things that could affect your treatment journey, as it were. And the way that we like to try and think about it is if we've got this hypothetical toolbox, and each treatment modality is a different tool that can go into this toolbox. And our aim is to fill that toolbox as much as is needed so you can complete all of your tasks that you want to do. And then it's to educate you. So then you need to learn which tool do you need to use for which job to get the outcome that you want. So you can then learn to live with this. You can learn to manage it to try and reduce the risk of symptoms coming back. And then learn, if you do have a flare-up, well, I can treat this myself. I don't need to go back and see Nick, Charlie and Dave. I know how to do this myself, and I know what I need to do to reduce the risk of this coming back again. Is there anything else we need to cover?
I think we covered quite a lot in 10 minutes.
No. Well, again, thank you for listening. Please do subscribe to the podcast. Massive thank you for Charlie for coming on again. We will post the videos and links to everything we've mentioned in this podcast episode. Any questions, get in contact and we shall see you on the next episode. See you later. Bye.
Bye.